All right, buckle up, everybody. We're diving deep into quantum computing stocks today.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, everyone saw those headlines last year, right? Some of those
Yeah.
quantum computing stocks, they just went like through the roof,
Yeah.
up 1,000%. Crazy,
Absolutely bananas.
totally. And then, Google, they dropped their Willow quantum chip,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, oh man, the future is now. But then things kind of took a turn.
Well, yeah. NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, kind of, I don't know if you saw this, but he kind of rained on everybody's parade.
Oh, yeah.
Basically came out and said, look, truly useful quantum computers, we're talking like 15, 20 years away still.
Yeah.
And that, after all that hype, that sent some shockwaves through the market, Some of those stocks that were flying high, they took a nosedive, like 50% in a day.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, man. I've got a bunch of articles here, like from the Quantum Daily, Investors Business Daily, even a research report from some Wall Street hotshots. Everyone trying to make sense of this quantum craziness. So I guess that's kind of our mission today, right? Figure out, is this like a dip to buy, or is the quantum bubble about to burst? That's a $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it helps if we, sort of like ground ourselves a little bit first. You got companies like IonQ. They're using these trapped ions to try to build their quantum computers. Then you've got Rigetti. They're all about these superconducting quantum processors.
Okay.
And then there's D-Wave. They're doing this thing called quantum annealing, which is like a totally different approach. Okay, so like different companies, different approaches, but I'm guessing they've all got one thing in common.
Yeah,
Those stock prices have been all over the place.
pretty much.
Like IonQ, their ticker symbol is IONQ, right?
It's the one.
They were trading at over $30 a share in December, and now I don't know if you've seen it recently, but it's like around $15.
Ooh.
It's crazy. And similar story with Rigetti, RGTI, and D-Wave, QBTS. So I mean, does this all come back to what Jensen Huang was saying? Like, is he basically saying, hey, this tech is cool and all, but it's just not ready yet?
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, he's saying, look, this technology is amazing. It's got huge potential, but it's just not ready for prime time yet.
Wow.
And I think for a lot of investors, it was kind of a wake-up call. Like, oh, maybe I got a little carried away with all the hype, paid a premium for a stock that might not deliver for, who knows, years.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But what about Quantum Computing Inc., QUBT? I was reading that they actually snagged a contract with NASA
Yeah.
to use their Dirac 3 technology.
Yeah.
So, I mean, doesn't that mean that there are like real-world applications happening right now?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to look at like the individual companies and not just get swept up in like the overall, market sentiment.
Yeah.
Because despite that dip, QUBT stock actually jumped after that NASA announcement. And they're really focused on this like quantum software development, which no matter who ends up building the best quantum hardware, that software side is going to be crucial.
Right.
You need that to make the hardware actually, do something useful.
Totally. So it really sounds like even with all this like up and down, there are still some good opportunities out there for investors, if they do their homework, if they really understand what's going on with quantum computing.
Yeah, I think that's the key takeaway here. You can't just like throw darts at a board and hope for the best. You really got to understand what these companies are actually doing, right? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Where do they fit into this whole quantum world?
Right. Okay, so let's go back to those different approaches you were talking about earlier. You mentioned trapped ions and superconducting processors and quantum annealing. I mean, it sounds like something out of Star Trek, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Can you break it down for us a little bit more? Like, what are those things really?
Sure. So let's start with the trapped ions. That's what IonQ is using. And basically what they're doing is they're trapping individual atoms, and then they're using lasers to manipulate their quantum states. It's pretty wild stuff.
Wow.
Very precise, very stable, but it can be tough to scale up to, the huge number of these qubits that you need to do these like really complex calculations.
Like, hold on, qubits. What are those?
Oh, right. So qubits are like the basic building blocks of quantum computers, like bits in a regular computer.
Uh-huh.
But the thing about qubits is they can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. It's called superposition. And that's kind of where quantum computers get their superpower from.
Okay, so that's starting to make sense. So trapped ions, very precise, maybe not as scalable. What about, was it the superconducting processors? That's what Rigetti is working on, right?
Yeah, exactly. So with superconducting processors, you're using these circuits that are cooled down to like ridiculously low temperatures, almost absolute zero, and that's where they start to show these quantum properties.
Uh,
They've made a lot of progress with scaling things up, but keeping those temperatures so low, that's a whole other challenge.
yeah, I can imagine. Okay, and then there was quantum annealing. That's the D-wave approach, right? Yeah. What's that all about?
So quantum annealing, it's kind of a different beast altogether. It's really good at solving these like optimization problems, like finding the best solution out of a zillion possibilities. Think like, logistics or financial modeling, stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's not what you'd call a general purpose quantum computing method like the others,
Yeah.
but it's already doing some cool stuff in the real world.
Okay, so it's like not a one-size-fits-all situation, different approaches for different problems, different strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely. And that's part of what makes this whole field so exciting. There's no clear winner yet. There's still tons of room for new ideas, new companies, new growth. And for investors, that means opportunity.
Yeah. But let's be real for a second. I mean, this is still a pretty risky investment, right? I mean, these companies are just getting started, and who knows, maybe none of them will end up being the Google or Amazon of the quantum world. So how do investors, how do they manage that risk?
Well, I think the key is diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one quantum basket, right? Spread your bets around a little bit. Different companies, different approaches, maybe even different parts of that whole quantum ecosystem.
Okay, like what else is there besides the hardware companies we've been talking about?
Well, you've got the whole software side of things, like what QUBT is doing. And then there are companies that are focused on developing quantum-resistant encryption because, get this, quantum computers could potentially break the encryption that we use today.
Oh, wow, that's a little scary.
It is, but it's also an opportunity. Companies like Arcquit Quantum, they're developing new types of encryption that are specifically designed to, withstand these quantum attacks.
Oh, wow, so even within quantum, you've got different levels of risk and reward, right?
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to do your homework, right? Read the research reports, understand the technology, but most importantly, really figure out your own risk tolerance. Are you a high risk, high reward kind of investor, or are you looking for something a little more, stable and predictable?
Right, because even if this whole quantum computing thing takes another 15 or 20 years to really, take off, there's still going to be winners and losers along the way.
Absolutely. The people who stay informed, the people who adapt, they're going to be the ones who are best positioned to, ride this wave and come out ahead.
It's like we're at the starting line of a marathon, and everyone's trying to figure out the best route, the best strategy. It's pretty exciting, but also, a little nerve-wracking.
And just like a marathon, it's not about who gets out of the gate the fastest. It's about pacing yourself, staying focused, and knowing when to make your move.
Now, we can't talk about quantum computing without talking about the big guys, right? IBM, Google, Microsoft, Amazon. They're all pouring billions into quantum research.
Mm.
So how does their involvement affect things for these smaller companies?
That's a great question. I mean, on one hand, having these giants in the game really validates the whole field of quantum computing, right? They wouldn't be investing so much if they didn't think it was the future. But at the same time, it creates competition for those smaller players.
It's kind of like a David and Goliath situation.
Yeah, in a way. Those smaller companies, they got to be smart. They got to be quick. They got to find their niche. Maybe focus on specific applications where they can, outmaneuver those big guys or develop some specialized software or hardware that works alongside what the big players are doing.
Yeah, but, it makes you wonder, are the big guys just going to gobble up these smaller companies eventually? I mean, that happens all the time in tech.
That's definitely a possibility. And for some investors, that's, part of the game plan, right? Hoping for that big buyout. But it's also totally possible that some of these smaller companies, they could become the giants of tomorrow. I mean, look at Amazon, right? They started as a little online bookstore.
Yeah, that's true. It's like the whole landscape can change so fast.
It really can. And it's the companies that can adapt, that can innovate, that are usually the ones standing at the end.
So I guess it all comes back to that question, right? What should investors do?
Well, first things first, don't panic. The fact that some stocks have dropped, that doesn't mean quantum computing is a bust. It just means, the market's sort of adjusting to a more realistic timeline.
Yeah, and it's a good reminder that investing in any new technology, it's a long game.
For sure.
It's not about getting rich quick. It's about understanding the potential and being patient.
Exactly. Do your research, find companies that, match your goals, match your risk tolerance, and then just, strap in and enjoy the ride.
Right.
Because even if it takes another 15, 20 years for this thing to really, hit the mainstream, it's going to be a wild ride getting there.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what happens with quantum computing. I mean, who knows? Maybe someday we'll be using it to, like, design personalized medicine or invent crazy new materials or even, like, solve some of the world's biggest problems.
And that's what's so amazing about this field, right? It's not just about making money, it's about like pushing the boundaries of what we know and creating a better future. And for investors who get that, the quantum computing revolution, it's just getting started.
Well, that's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And remember, stay curious, stay informed, and don't be afraid to explore the unknown. Until next time, happy investing.